have this residency program since the beginning. So now we have 3 guest houses, and there's, artists from abroad are staying there, working there, and that's for audience. That's interesting because it means that they can actually come. So, and it doesn't stay outside; they can be inside. I mean, I don't know what the viewers are, but I guess there's a lot of artists viewing it. So for them, it's interesting. I mean, besides the history and the project, but it's also interesting for them that they can actually come and say hello, so that it gets more close and not distant. So that could be interesting.
So we are in Rotterdam, in Fondation B.A.D. building.
B.A.D. We call it.
B.A.D. Okay. Maybe you can talk a little about the history of the foundation.
Well, the foundation was started when we were at Art Academy. Didn't provide that many studios for the students. So there was this small group of people who wanted to get a studio building, and then there was in the center of the city there was this building, and they could get this building legally for just a small period of time.
Yeah, maybe 1-2 years.
1-2 years. But so they had to have this legal kind of organization. So that's when they started Foundation B.A.D. They never got into this building because
it was an old bathhouse.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called B.A.D. But then it has the 2 dots inside because maybe it can mean something different, but it never kind of became anything. But they had an old bathhouse. That never happened because maybe of asbestos.
Yeah, I think it was
like
asbestos.
Inside, so it never happened.
We were not even part of this foundation, so they were from a higher year, and then they asked us to help them to get another building, but they wanted to squat this building. And because they did not have any idea how to do that, experience, so then they asked us, and we were also some students, not organized.
They had already contact with the municipality and tried to get one building officially, let's say from the official part, because they were in the other building, they were kicked out and they had to negotiate a new building. But it took so long time and it was so difficult that they asked us, which were not really a group at the time, but we were 1 year younger, we had some squatting experience, if we would squat it at the same time, so you would have it officially and unofficially pressure on the same building to kind of speed up the process of getting this place. We went to check it out, like what the building is, where it is, but then the door was already open, like, oh, we squatted right now. Like, so we didn't even kind of agree on how to do what things, but we went just to check it and it was open, so we squatted it right away. And then we squatted it, and then we had to occupy it for at least 2 weeks, almost day and night, to make sure that we occupy it. So we had morning shifts, afternoon shifts, evening shifts to kind of keep the building occupied. And
we stayed there for 2 years.
2.5 years. Almost,
2.5 years. And then we had to leave the building because they were going to renovate the whole building. But it was also in the year that we were in our last year.
In our exams, yeah.
In our exams, so we really needed another building. So we divided the whole city on a map to look for empty buildings with all of us. We were then with a group for about 11 people. 11 students, and then we found this building and we squatted it immediately.
So that was like in 1991, one year before we had to do exams, the other ones just finished exams. So this youth built as an industrial school for girls after the Second World War to kind of integrate women into the reconstruction of Rotterdam after the bombardment. The school left, but it kind of abandoned the building. And we went in within the year, it was not empty for that long. And that was in 1991, and we are here ever since.
It's interesting because we are relatively close from the city center. I mean, it's just like 1 or 2 kilometers away, so not that far.
But at that time, Rotterdam was pretty much different from now.
Yeah.
Because nobody wanted to be in the south, and still that is kind of like that.
Because of the industrial part of...
No, there's not so much social life here, let's say public life. So you have a lot of housing, a lot of infrastructure, but there's, for example, almost no public infrastructure like restaurants, or there's no galleries, there's no official representation of the city. There's, and especially there used to be district councils in Rotterdam. So there were 11 district councils, and they had like local municipalities. and they had the political power, for example, to decide building permits or public space, but that has been centralized in 2012, and now there's definitely no representation of the city inside the south. And yeah, it's like other big cities, it has a lot of unemployment. It's the youngest population of the Netherlands, but at the same time you have a lot of school problems, school dropouts, unemployment. Yeah, I mean, in a way, if you kind of like put it to the extreme, everybody who lives here cannot live somewhere else. That's why we are here too, in a way. Nobody wanted this building. It was the time when all the school buildings from the national state were handed over to the municipalities. So the buildings themselves belonged to the Ministry of Education, national property, and they were transformed to the local authorities. But when this building was abandoned by the school, the municipality didn't want to have it because it had so many maintenance problems. Like you know, here you have a gift with a lot of problems, so they didn't want to have it. So it was in dubio, it had no owner.
It was in between. The school board, they just abandoned the building. They had to give it over to the government. They did not. So then it became something interesting for us, because at a certain point we wanted to invest into the building, but we also wanted to be sure that we would not be kicked out within a few years. So then it became interesting how to deal with it, if we could own it by ourselves, or that we could get an housing corporation interested, so they would invest in it for long term. And we still had to negotiate with the local government, but also with the ministry of who owned the building. And because of all these changes in the law, it was a very interesting period. Also because squatting became illegal, it became forbidden.
Yeah, this happened also in Berlin, that in the 1990s, right after the change, the government change, and the demolition of the wall. Yeah, there's a lot of squat foundations and just some small organizations was there, but in the 2000s years, right after, they just cut it.
Well, here it was in 2010 that they made it illegal to squat buildings which don't have a destination for living. So squatting is still a right, except that you cannot squat a factory or another building which has no living destination. So all the schools, but also factories, became illegal to squat them. You can still squat a house, but you can't squat a building that is not meant for living. And but then we are already here for a long time. And at some point they had to make a map of, so every now and then they make a map of all the buildings and their future destination. And because the local government knew we were here already for 10 years, they changed it into our advantage. So they allowed us to live here and to work here. And that made it kind of interesting for the future to be able to sustain it. But maybe you have to go back a bit. So when we squatted it, we were 11 people in the same smaller group. Now we are 24 artists in 18 studios. There are 6 households. So 6 places to live in different formation, with kids or without kids. And we still have 3 guest houses or guest studios in a kind of residency program for international artists. And that has always been like that, but now it's 3. It used to be more when it was squatted. Now it's a bit less, but and then we have this very large garden, which is a playground of the former school, and we share that with our neighbors. So it's a kind of community garden.
And a big main hall, which can be used for events, exhibitions, or whatever.
Actually, from the street, you cannot recognize this, and you see the normal buildings in the Netherlands. It's quite the same kind of, and style. I mean, the stylish. And when you come here, then you say, wow, okay, amazing garden, small buildings, and you can even, I think you can even cook outside.
If you look at this building from the outside, you would not say it's necessarily an artist building. It looks like quite normal. There's no, there's on the outside you will not see anything different than it's a bit cleaned up, but it's not like there's graffiti on it or like some murals or
No.
There's no flag on it. There's no name on it even. So it's kind of like silent building.
Although now we have this window gallery
Yeah.
on one side of the building, which opens up a bit more, seen as an artist building, but that's basically it.
Let's talk about maybe the possibilities what one can do here, because you have studios. Yeah, I need to read it because you have a lot actually. So you have exhibitions, events. I think you even have a magazine, the Schande magazine. No, it's not. It's not yours. Maybe I'm not sure.
No.
Okay, but it was on the event side. So okay, you have concerts, cooking workshop.
When we squatted the building, we were more or less the only ones in the south at the time. There was one artist group in the quarantine area, which is a bit further down the harbor, but actually quite far away. Yeah, we were the only ones, only artists, let's say, in this neighborhood, or this district actually. In 2001 we did for the first time an open studio route, but actually it was not possible because people were so far away from each other, you could not make any kind of route, so we had to concentrate it. But it just shows you that in the beginning this was not a place for artists, except that you would have empty buildings which nobody wanted. And therefore we also never really made a program because you have no audience. And still that is a bit like that. If you do an open studio, most people who visit are your colleagues, but the neighborhood doesn't really come. And whatever you do, doesn't matter what kind of promotion or campaign you do, it's very difficult to find audience within this district. So we never had a kind of official program or gallery or because it makes no sense. But we do events, but on a very irregular basis, let's say.
There's sometimes even better because, I know a lot of gallerists and gallery who has, of course, normal opening times and front doors, visuals, everything, leaflets, putting out everywhere. But then I think what is really counts is the people who are interested and how you know that there is a program who are interested. You go to the internet and see what's going on, and so you don't need any more. It's happening also in Paris, I guess, that you don't need any more a fancy building to show your works.
In 2001 we began the first open studio. And then already more artists were settling in Charlois, in the district of Charlois. And that grew to a festival for a whole weekend. And then it became 10 days festival. And now we still have the South Explorer, so normally 2 times a year all the art studios in the south are open. And it's also interesting to see each other's places and make an inventory of who is there. So if over the years you can see kind of like the growing and the disappearance of places and new places, old places. But also it's a kind of invitation to the neighborhood. It doesn't mean they all come at once, but it's at least open twice a year. If you want to visit, you're welcome. And that's a kind of to be open to your surroundings, which is important.
If we want to get any audience, they mostly have to come from the city center. So, because from the people around here, not many.
And also you cannot find a restaurant here. There's only takeaway, but there's no restaurant place, there's no lunch room, let's say. And so if you invite people, you have to provide lunch too, because you cannot go anywhere. Or there's nothing to find. So it's a kind of strange neighborhood in that way.
Yeah, but I don't think it should be a problem, because if you go to the north, just like a little, like 1 kilometer, you have a lot of things.
But nonetheless, there's a psychological border between the south and the north.
Yeah.
And Holland, I don't know. In France, you drive 50 kilometers for an opening, and here 5-10 minutes is already like, ooh, that's far away. So it's also has to do with the size of the country, I think, and what are you used to. Yeah, it's difficult to get people at an opening here from the north because they think it's raining maybe.
Most people have to come by cycling through the tunnel, Maas tunnel. But there's still some people who ask at what time the tunnel is closing at night. And it's open for 24 hours a day. It has never been any different, but there are still people who are asking to that.
Okay, you mentioned you have a lot of studios, artist studios, and I just wondering if the people who working there is changing constantly a little, or you have the kind of same people in the studio.
It changes, but through the years, you know, it's mostly a bit like going like this. Sometimes, if one is leaving, most of the time a few people are leaving then. So. And then for the next couple of years, it's really tight. Everybody stays. But through the years, how many changes did we have?
Well, the main change was when we went from the old building to the new place. Yeah, then some people left.
Yeah.
Then another main change was when when we were here for maybe until 2012, let's say.
Yeah, when you had to change that.
Then the building was really falling apart.
Yeah.
And we had to decide that we had to stay or go. But if we would stay, we have to do something. We were doing the maintenance ourselves, so fixing holes in the pipes, fixing the windows, but it was all very old, and it was really at the end of it. So then we started the process to find either to buy it ourselves or some way to sustain the building, which takes a long time to find out because there was no owner. First we had to go to court to get somebody to become the owner. Eventually we found a housing corporation that would kind of buy it for us and then renovate it with us. And that process took a long time because there was also no examples, so you had to find it all out yourself. And in that period some people left, some people came in, but also left before actually the renovation started. And then some other people came after the renovation, but there is still like 5-6 people from the old early group who are still here.
I'm very curious about technology, and the technology has really changed a lot in the last year, last 5 years. You can pick any period you want. But in the art world, I think it's not that dramatic, the changes. However, still some technology is coming in to, for example, if you see the Centre Pompidou or MoMA or the London Tate Modern shows, then you see that okay, there's more video, more like performative art, and even in sculptures, some people start using technology, or even TVs like Namjoon Paik started that things. So what do you think about this? Do we inherently a little the technology into art, or just leave as it is?
If you see the whole group from the start that we came here, the interest of all the artists who are here have always been quite wide.
Quite open, yeah.
Yeah, so from video till painting. Yeah, maybe we do have less painters nowadays. I used to paint, and now I'm making videos, but
paintings kind of.
Yeah, I'm videoing my paintings in a way, yeah. But I think our interests have always been quite wide. Well, maybe the interest or how the use of the building that has been changed. In the old days, when we came in, we had the whole space, and we could use, and also for the residents, they had a guest house to live in, and they had a studio beside it. So it was quite diverse how the space has been used. But of course now with renting the whole building, it has now also become more expensive to the space. So now, like now we are the whole building. There are now about 24 people who are using the space in the whole building, so that has been changed. And in the old days, when we were here, there were about 12-15 people. Everyone had a lot of space to use. So from building big stuff, mostly people are now using the space in a limited way, And if they have to build up something, they do it outside.
Especially in communications, I think that's also very different than before. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
we grew up without any digital stuff, no computers, no smartphones. You had to go to the phone box in the street to phone your friends, or you had to go to a place, to a bar, or to somebody's house, ring the bell. If he's not home, you have to go back home. You know, you have no communications. I think the aesthetics of technology has changed a lot of things, because we grew up with, you know, analog cameras. You had to make a photograph, develop your film, then maybe that goes wrong, then you go into the dark room, maybe print, and that go, you know, so many steps in producing something, and which can have a lot of things that are not perfect, but the imperfectness could also be interesting. And it's very difficult to make a bad digital photo. You have to, you know, shake your camera or do something wrong, but deliberately. But so the aesthetics of the perfectness of things, you can see it everywhere in the arts. Everything is almost perfect, because it's very difficult to make it unperfect. And in a way, technology doesn't work if it's unperfect, because then the plug is out, and then there's nothing. It's not necessarily here, but you can see it everywhere, that is changing, that the perfectness of things has become a very strong aesthetic.